So welcome, David. I'm really excited to have this chat with you. Um, I woke up one morning and my intuition's like, I got to add on some people onto Facebook. And I think I added on 10 people on that day. 4 of them showed up later as random people. And you were one of them. And you're usually quite selective who you say yes to. And you
Yes.
accepted it, and you got back to me about a dream you had, which we'll talk later on in the session. And that was very excited. I was like, oh, there's a real match. And we had this great idea that we talk a bit about you, your vision, and your huge bank of knowledge about how wherever you are on your journey. And I'd love to be able to share that with more people. So tell me a little bit about yourself and your awakening journey.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you for having me. This is really excited to be here because of that connection that I hope we go into later, because such a great story, how the beginning of how we met. But yeah, a little bit about me. I am a men's coach and a therapist. I've been working in that field for several years, and I guess the story of my ongoing awakening. Sometimes I don't like the term awakening because it feels like it's a finite thing that, okay, we've been awakened, so now here we are, and really it's just an ongoing infinite process of 2 steps forward and 1 step back. And mine really started, I had a couple of mystical experiences when I was very young that I had no idea how to put into words, but I had this kind of concept of traveling through the infinite, and my little brain was just blown of like, how do I fit that into this reality? And I had no one to talk to about it. And I knew for some reason I had this intuition that no one would understand me. So I just kind of kept it in. And I was a very empathic, sensitive child in a world that felt like it wasn't supportive of that. And so I was very, very quiet my whole life growing up. And so that was kind of the beginning, and there was these little signposts along the way. The second one was in high school when I started experimenting with psychedelics, especially acid. Some friends were like, hey, do you want to try this? I had no idea. I'd never heard anything about it, and ended up doing it. And again, there was this huge expansion, and it really started to give me more of a concept of what I had experienced when I was a little child. I was like, oh, we are a part of something much bigger than, and this is something that I struggled with when I was young, that feeling I was out of place and I had no place in this world, and things felt very plastic, or like there was something more, but I couldn't get to it. And then finally the psychedelics kind of gave me that first access. And then after that, there was a kind of a long period of time where I used psychedelics, but it was more of to get that high, to get that expansion, but I really wasn't like using it in a ceremonial way or as a conscious way, but I was definitely like planting the seeds of consciousness that would grow later. And then I went through a long period of time where I was also using and abusing other drugs and alcohol and just anything really to dampen everything that I was feeling, because it felt like too much at times, just my sensitivity, and felt like I couldn't function in the world without something to dampen. And so I would use things to help me fall asleep, and drink lots of coffee during the day and alcohol on the weekends, and lots of very active social life. But there was always something, I was always hiding something, which was I felt out of place. Like I wasn't living my truth. I wasn't in alignment with who I was deep at my core. And I didn't have the words for that. I just knew that I didn't feel good. And so I needed to medicate, self-medicate in very sometimes self-destructive and harmful ways. And that, but at the same time, I've also been a long time meditator. I read the book Siddhartha when I was in high school, and that was that was another signpost where I read that book and I was like, oh, I need to be doing this. And just there wasn't a lot around me where I grew up in Connecticut. So it was about finding those places. And then when I was when I was 21, I moved out to San Francisco, and there I found much more community. I found the Zen Center of San Francisco, which is where Suzuki Roshi, who wrote Beginner's Mind, Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind. So it's a beautiful monastery there, and anybody can just go and meditate with the monks. It's an amazing experience. And I lived a few blocks down the street from that place. So that really began this kind of parallel journey where I had this one life where I was doing yoga and I was meditating, and I had this other life where I was doing ecstasy and going to raves and drinking alcohol. And they seemed, it felt like I was living two different lives a lot of the time. The next kind of point was, I had lots of corporate jobs. I was doing web development, working for companies like Hewlett Packard and things like that. And I really started to, I can't remember exactly where it was, but I found a teacher. Her name was Pema Khandro, and she is Tibetan, a wonderful, amazing Tibetan Lama, American-born Lama, but a very powerful holder of Nyingma and Dzogchen Tibetan Buddhist lineages. And I didn't know anything about any of that because I was mainly just practicing Zen at the time. But I knew that whatever she was saying, I not just wanted, but I already knew. It was like she was saying things that were just jogging my memory, like a really deep memory. And I was just like, oh yeah, I know this stuff. I know this. And so I began following her, and then eventually moved into a practice house of this school, which is, in India would be called an ashram, but in Tibetan is a gompa. And this was a place where we practiced our sadhana together. We had a daily practice in the morning, yoga, meditation, and that really brought me into the world of Tantra, which I didn't realize at the time. Everything I had associated with Tantra was, the sexual American neo-Tantra that gets advertised. And what this was a classical Tibetan Buddhist Tantra, the Tantra of just experiencing God through the senses, that God is everywhere. And through our experience of sensual experience of being here on this earth, rather than trying to separate our soul and our body, that everything is an experience of God. That
Can you just
really,
explain a little, just a little bit about that difference? Because that's what I'm passionate about, to not let people have that New Age Tantra experience, because everybody's allowed to, but I'm quite passionate about sending that information out and just saying that is just something you can experience, but it's not pure Tantra. So just what you've experienced and the difference between the two in yourself. And if you ever
classical and the neo.
Yes, yeah. And if you ever regretted doing the neo, or that had to be part of you to experience the classic, like the difference.
Yeah, I think I have a deep love and reverence for the classic, because not only have I done Tibetan lineages, but I've also studied the Kashmiri Shaivism lineages, which is the Indian lineages. And to me, they're two different things, and they really shouldn't be using the same names. And but it is what it is. So, but there are, I have found some schools of Neo-Tantra that have an anchoring into the classical Tantra. But I would say the main difference is that of all the thousands and thousands of texts, so just a brief history, classical Tantra comes from the Kashmir region of India. I think it's the 7th and 8th centuries. And it was really a turning on the head of everything that had come before it, which said that in order to have a spiritual life, we needed to separate the Purusha from the Prakriti, the spirit from the body. And that was the way to find God, that we need to separate from this body. And Tantra really turned that on its head and said, no, this body and spirit are all part of the same thing, and we can experience enlightenment through the body, through the senses. It's a much trickier path because there's a lot of tricks and traps along the way of getting attached to this sensual body that we're in.
Yeah, addicted.
Which is addicted. Yeah, definitely. And that, I think, is where that is the danger, I think, of Neo-Tantra.
Mm-hmm.
There's a great benefit, I think, to Neo-Tantra, especially in the West, because we're so suppressed sexually that it gives people a way to drop a lot of shame and guilt around having a sexual body and being sexual people and having feelings, for having desires. A lot of those things are so suppressed in people that the Neo-Tantra really gives them a path to open up and drop a lot of those patterns that are holding them back and holding them from their deepest creative forces. Like, our sexual energy is such a creative force, and it's a pathway to what we can create in this world. Is literally, we're creating, it's meant for creation of life, but it's also creation of energy and creation of our passion. So those things are wonderful, but the trap is people get addicted to the sensual, the experiences of the highs of sex and sensual pleasure, and these neo-tantric experiences that we create are beautiful, opening, expansion, but we have to know that also on the other side of that is the contraction. You can't just keep expanding. Yes. The other side, you have to be working with the shadow. You have to be cognizant of the fact that when we're contracted, like, how do you be with that contraction? How do you witness that contraction? How do you move through that as well? And that is a really important factor that the good Neo-Tantra schools are looking at, and the not so good ones kind of leave to the side.
Exactly. So can we just spend a moment there? I love that. So when you're expanded, it's so great. So when the contraction happens in the shadow side, if you could just put more words on that, that's so important, because I've just experienced people just going back for those highs to avoid the contraction, and I feel it's a loss of life force. And then it's almost like you become an alcoholic. You lose all your life force, you lose your purpose, you're an addicted, and you see it in the people just not looking so glowy. So how would one do the shadow work? Like, how important it is? Could you just put a few words on that?
Yeah. I think the shadow work is looking at those parts of yourself that you don't want to look at, the parts of ourselves that we put in the shadow. And a lot of those parts get triggered often when we come into this expansion. We're shining a bright light onto everything. All of a sudden we're very expanded, and that allows us to look at everything. And all of a sudden we see some shit that we don't want to see. Like, we open the closet, and all of a sudden there's this, this person we hurt, or this pattern that we do over and over again, or this way of behaving that just is not good to look at. And that's a lot of times where the contraction comes in. And this is an super important part in yoga. It's called spanda, which is the expansion and contraction of the universe. And it happens at every level of the universe. The universe is expanding and contracting, and our atoms are expanding and contracting at millions of times a second. And so one of my Kashmiri Shaivism teachers likened it to the action of an octopus, or not an octopus, a jellyfish. If you watch how a jellyfish swims, it expands and contracts and expands and contracts, and that there's no good or bad part of that action. Each part is necessary for that jellyfish to move. It's just a natural phenomenon that happens. And that's the same thing in us as above as below, that we are always expanding and contraction. So that is not just an important part to look at, it's essential if we're going to make any progress or be aligned with our path. Like, the shadow aspect there's a lot of gold there, because when we look at the things that we don't want to look at, those are things that everybody sees already. We're just we think that we're hiding them, but everybody sees them. And so if we can consciously look at them and find out where the benefit or what the skill is there,
Yes.
then we can use it to our advantage.
Yeah, I saw a recent Sadhguru lecture, and it was so amazing. He's like, you know, your nose is above your mouth, and when you don't brush your teeth, everybody in the room can smell it, but you. And I was like, you know, as I've done my shadow work, I've realized that probably everybody could see my patterns. They were just watching it, and I should just get on with it and do it, because you can't really hide it from anyone, but you can hide it from yourself and pretend not to. And moving on from that, the expansion we were talking about, that's where the creativity comes. We wanted to also move on to talking a little bit about that. What a lot in the world is the idea of fear versus love, temptation versus intuition, and what we had last time we talked, fighting versus creativity. It can also be what you're saying, but in terms of where the world is now, I would like to invite you to share a little bit how you perceive we could be in creative mode, even though there's so much fighting going on with our number one topic, vaccine and COVID. How can we still make sure that we can not forget the universal laws have not changed, even though the world has changed? My thoughts will, and my behaviors and my actions will still create that hasn't changed.
Yeah, I think it's an important distinction between how you, the way that you perceive the world. So there's a couple of different ways to look at the energy of kind of the energy of expansion and contraction, but also the energy of polarity of things coming up against each other, of good and evil, of of these opposing forces. And one of them is to look at it like a war. Like there's a war between good and evil, and I'm on the side of good, and I'm fighting the battle. And the words you use are very indicative of your world perception. So if you're using words like I'm in a war, I'm fighting a battle, then that is what you're going to call in. You're going to feel that energy from people around you. You're going to have people fighting you. You're going to be defending your stances. You're going to feel like you're going to, in battle after battle, you're going to be battle exhausted after a while, and shell shocked sometimes, and defeated because you feel like you're losing the war. And the other way of looking at it is that it's a dance. It's a dance of energies. It's a dance of opposing forces, that there is ultimately no good or evil, that we're all here to be a part of this dance. And what is your creative energy telling you that your part is in this dance? And if you're feeling like you're here for good, and you're here to create something special that's gonna light up the world, and that's where you should put your energy. And if that is helping the side of the good, that's great. But getting attached to your side winning, or the good winning the war, is what starts to bring you out of that flow and out of that creative energy. And so it's really a matter of aligning your words, your thoughts, and your actions to how you want to behave in the world, and who you want to create in and call in as your allies and people around you. Do you want people who are creative, dancing with the energy of the world, or do you want people on the front lines with guns fighting the enemy and resisting? Right?
Yes, exactly. And from there, I mean, I had this vision, which I shared with you like 2 years ago. I was rock bottom in life, and suddenly somebody came in my life and did a constellation where I was shown this vision of creating a community center in Bali 2 years ago. I had so much resistance. I didn't know where the world would go, but I just thought, okay, that's where I have to go. I thought it would be just a simple retreat center. Having that vision and being clear on it somehow helped me through all of last year and this year, as the vaccine topic, as COVID got loud. It's not that I don't respect it, and it's not that I don't think that it's not real. You're allowed to think it's not real, all of that. But this vision, like what I want to create, helped me also keep a sense of awareness when I was sometimes in a car with people, especially now in Bali. And the topic was always like, oh, so what's the new rule? And is it going to be lockdown? And have you had the vaccine? And I just said, hey, hold on, people. Do you not see how much our daily conversation is around this? And if we are just having these conversations, not that they don't have their space, hello, we're not creating. And then everybody in the car, it was just a lack of, and they were like, oh, and I'm not saying that there's a conspiracy theory to dampen our creativity, but it's our choice. And then they were like, oh, that's true. And I said, so how about, do we all spend even just 1 hour in that world of what am I going to create? What is my new world? Even if the 23 hours is occupied by fear. I mean, are we having time? Are we giving ourselves some time to know? And I can personally say that it works, because I am creating a new world, and I am creating on the way to create community. So I wanted to ask you, to talk a little bit about that also.
Yeah, absolutely. It reminds me of one of my favorite quotes from Buckminster Fuller, which is that you don't create a new way of being by fighting the old way. You do it by creating something new that makes the old way obsolete. And so that is really, there's something to be said about focusing our energy on what our creative forces wants, what our soul wants, what our purpose is. There's so many ways of talking about it, but there's something inside of us that when we get out of our own way, when we get out of our head, when we get out of resistance, when we just kind of let something flow through us, whatever your word for it is, whether it's grace or spirit or God or inspiration, something comes through us, and we've all touched it in some way at some point in our lives. And you know when you're in alignment. And sometimes it's hard to know when you're out of alignment because we're in that contracted kind of blinders on view. But we know when we're in alignment and things are just flowing.
Yeah.
And that is such an important thing to be able to cultivate. And it does come from being not in resistance. And I think it's also an important distinction to make. I think that there are some people whose dharma, whose purpose here in life is to fight. Like your purpose may be to create a foundation that is petitioning the government against something that is something really bad, like human trafficking or whatever it is.
Anti-vaccine.
Anti-vaccine, whatever if it's something that feels in alignment and that fight feels in flow for you and it enlivens you and it's part of your creative force here in the world, then that's different than being in resistance to everything and just constantly fighting everything and not feeling creative. Yes. So I think it's really important to make that distinction, that it's not that we shouldn't be fighting or should be fighting. It's what is your soul purpose? Where do you feel aligned? And then not shaming others for not being on the same path as you. We're all on different paths. Some people are there to fight. Some people are there to create something or build something. Some people are there to build community. Others are there to be a voice. And it all adds to the dance. It's all just different flavors in the soup.
Yeah, for me personally, I found meditation, breathing practices, and for me also what you call somatic body experiences, also trauma work to get trauma out of the body, allowed me to be more in alignment because I just didn't have so many contracted states. And would you like to also share some things that help you to stay in this state, even though the world, we might shake sometimes, but to really say, okay, what's my next step on this creative vision? Or this, I have to set up this institute against vaccine or against human trafficking.
Right. I would say the most important step for me was to have a daily practice. And in the very beginning, it was just 10 minutes a day. And doing 10 minutes a day for a long period of time, like over 32 months, 3 months, was way, way, way more important than doing an hour once a week or a couple hours every once in a while or something like that. And then I just slowly began to build on that. So then it was 12 minutes a day, 15 minutes a day. And when I'm really in flow and things are feeling good, I do an hour and a half a day. And then sometimes I'm really contracted and I have a lot to do, but I still do at least 20 minutes a day now. And I really think it's important to incorporate, like you said, a few different things. I need to do some sort of movement. I need to get my body moving because we hold so much in our body, especially in our shoulders, our neck, our hips. So to get all those things moving, I have a number of different things I do for movement. It's either qigong or yoga or dance, but just something to get the body moving. Second is some sort of breath work. There's so many beautiful breath works that can give us energy or help us balance or clear, pranayamas in yoga, something, so we're moving the breath. And then some sort of meditation that could be just a silent meditation. It could be a guided meditation, a visualization, vipassana, which is more of a somatic experiencing kind of what American mindfulness is based off of. Yeah. So those three things, to me, in any combination, it's about finding the ones that work for you, I think have been the most important for me.
Wonderful. Yeah, I found without it being a uncool word, discipline really helped me. Even if it's like 10 minutes, it really helped me. And then from there, I'd just like to go on to our main reason why we connected was this idea of, we both had the vision of community, which I'm finding more and more people as I got clear on it, because I said to you, is it more people doing it around the world, or it's because I'm getting clear that I'm attracting it? I don't know. If current situations are asking, when you want to get pregnant, you see pregnant women, or when you want a Tesla, you saw many Teslas. So I'm not sure, but I am attracting many, many more people who are like, oh, community living as and there appears to be a need for something that's maybe not quite there. And we touched on that. It's like, we're like, there's something there, and what is it? And attracting the people. So I wanted you to put some words on it. And on top of that, I have encountered some people who what we called light workers, or working for the good. I feel them being very fearful now. They're almost like, oh my God, I'm in danger. Where can we start a community thing? And I'm truly understand fear as someone who wants to create good stuff, blah, blah. But it's still, I had to look that it's within me. I cannot have this fear around me unless it's within me. And so that panic mode of like, oh my God, I have to find a place because it's all against me and I'm this amazing light worker. So I wondered if you had that experience and you could give some advice how somebody who has a good intention, has money and finances, and is really ready for some sort of community offering and community space, how they can go through maybe a process of grounding and calming and allowing it to unfold in its right divine timing.
Yeah. Well, I guess let's speak to first. I would love to tell the story of kind of my vision and my community, my vision around community and how we were brought together. So I think it's a great story. Yeah. So I've long had this vision of creating a retreat center and a healing center. As I mentioned, I do somatic therapy, I do hypnotherapy, and I do a lot with yoga, tantra, meditation, and I do coaching as well. And I really want a retreat center that has all those things available to people. So things for the mind, the body, and the soul. So retreats for people at different levels, beginners retreats and more advanced retreats as well, but really a center that is at the cutting edge of these modalities that are really helping some of us kind of break through and heal traumas, which I think is really at the core of what everybody needs to be doing is healing their trauma, right? Because I think we're all traumatized living in this world. There's nobody who escapes unscathed, I don't think, unless you had some enlightened parents and lived in some bubble somewhere. I don't know how you
might be even more traumatized because you have to come
maybe
out in the
now,
world. We don't know,
you have
but
to come out eventually. Right.
I had this like a wonderful quote that really helped me understand, for me, taking more responsibility, saying that we're really all just 8-year-olds who are running around in adult bodies hurting people because we don't know how to run around as adults. And that really helped me take responsibility and look at my 7-year-old, 6-year-old who was doing her stuff and thinking I'm this amazing person, but no, she was running a big part of the show. So,
that is in that concept is in one of the inner child healing books. I can't remember the name of the author, but he talks about how our parents are just little kids and like driving these adult bodies. And that is such a helpful concept because we just have, as kids, we have this view of our parents who are, abusing us in certain ways, or, laying down these laws and doing all these awful things. And just to turn out that there's these hurt little children driving these adult bodies makes so much more sense and kind of really helped me on my healing journey. So my vision is to have a healing retreat center, and it's something that I haven't quite solidified on where that is or what that looks like. I've begun kind of drawing what the buildings are going to be, and what it would look like, and started to feel into where it would be. And then a friend of mine suggested that I should work at a place that would help me to understand what the beginning stages of creating a retreat community, because it's really not just about creating the space, but creating the community as well. And when I did that, I started looking around at all the retreat centers in the world, and there's so many, and so many are not doing what I want to do. So finding someone that was aligned with me, that was looking for somebody that had my skills, and I just got really overwhelmed. And I said, all right, well, I'm just going to leave this. I'm just going to put it out in the world that this is what I want. And literally 2 days later is when I got a friend request from you on Facebook.
And like, I have to friend this guy. I don't know why.
Yeah. And I said, we only had one mutual friend in common, which makes me very skeptical, because I get, you get a lot of these spam bots who are just trying to, send you to their OnlyFans page or whatever. So I looked through your posts and saw that you were creating this healing center in Bali, or this retreat center. And I was like, wow, that's really good. And so I wrote this message saying, I don't know why you reached out to me, but here's my vision and here's what I have to offer. And I would love to talk to you. And you're like, wow, yeah, I just reached out to you purely by intuition. So that was just a real magical moment of the power of putting what you want out there in the universe, and being open to what's gonna come back, as opposed to like, I need to get every detail down and then create this thing all by myself. The reminder that we're not alone. We're not these individual boxes.
Can you please say a little bit more about that? Because that's one of my learnings, and I find that's a real message I want to get out to people. But we're not going to do this alone. It's just not going to work. We're all in this together, and some of us have this skill, some of us have that skill, and you don't have to be perfect, but just put it out. Once a friend was driving on a land and he showed it, and it's a huge piece of land, and I was like, this is it. And without knowing how it's going to come about, I think in March I bought it. And so it's just a huge piece of land. And also, luck have it, usually you can just buy land here for like 30 years and the owner sold it forever. And so for me, it was like, okay, I have this. Now, before I get overwhelmed and I have to figure it out, I said, okay, what do? You set the company and then just put on Facebook, I have land, what next? And so it's so amazing. So can you just say a little bit more? Because I really would like us to all know we can't do this alone, or it's not something to be done alone, and about that part.
Yeah. I think a lot of us have stories of or traumas around not trusting not trusting
Yeah.
others, and it feels really difficult to depend on something very unknown. And I come from as my nature, I'm a very skeptical person, and I only trust what I experience. And so, if you talk to me now, I've been studying a lot of yoga and meditation for this, so I use a lot of this woo language sometimes, and to hear myself saying it sometimes, I laugh at myself, because if I had met myself, the 20 years ago me met myself now, I would just be like, I have no time for you, because what are you talking about? Like energy and flow and things like that. And my answer to that is, like, try it. Like, there's the only way to experience, or to really to get the experience of something, or know for yourself if it's true or not true, is to try and experience something.
Right.
So, I think the first step is to know yourself. What do you want? What is, not just what you think is right, or what will get you money, or what will get you safety or security. What do you want? And that takes some work, to really find some way of being able to talk about your experiences and your pains and your not being able to trust, whether that is in therapy, or in a men's group, or close friends that you can talk through these things. It's about being able to talk through these things that we hold on inside, and then just start to take baby steps. Like, okay, here's something I want. I'm going to put it out there, and then see what comes back. And you're going to be surprised. You're going to be amazed. And then the more you do it, the more you have faith. Okay, this is something I can actually trust in, because I know it works, because I've done it time and time, and it's repeatable. And so that's what I believe in, is things that I can experience and that are repeatable. And I think once you start down this path of opening yourself up to that possibility, that you can put it out there, and then the people that are going to help you, that are filling in the gaps of, like you said, we have a very limited set of skills and attributes that are going to help us on our path, and we need others. And the more that you call these people in, the more that you see how much more we get done when we're in community of like-minded people who have different skills, but have a shared vision, even if the vision is not exactly the same, but a shared vision of how it can be, or what we want to create together. The sum of the parts is so much bigger than the whole sometimes.
Amazing. Yes. So that was also one of my reasons. It's like, I don't know if you're going to come to Bali, or you're going to open the center there. It's more like, let's share this vision. And so we might have lighthouses all over the world. We will. So how can I share my part of the journey of getting that land with you, who's got all this stuff? And if we don't share that, and we just go out there, and we won't be able to exchange these skills, which will help each other. And since I've talked to you first time and before this interview, I've got so many people, hey, I'm a healer, I've got this vision, can I come to Bali? And I was like, wait, I've just got land. But we're in the process of allowing things to come, and it does happen, guaranteed. Once you get more and more into your vision, and the right people come. It's true. I never thought it would be, but it's true. That really works. And sorry, carry on.
Go ahead.
No.
I was gonna come back to what you were saying before. Is this an exploding consciousness event around community, or is it that we're just focusing, like we're focused on it, so now we see it everywhere? And that's an interesting thing to think about, because I know personally, like I've started to see it everywhere, and it seems like everybody's talking about it. This has now this base understanding of we need to create community. We don't know how to do it, and there's some people figuring it out. There's some people who have been doing it for a long time, but it's been very much siloed. Like there's a lot of conscious communities around America, but now it seems to be starting to at least hit the mainstream of the healing community. That okay, if we're going to really create something, that we're stronger together. And I think there's also something that has been waking it up with the 2008 financial crisis, and then this pandemic, and this people being not kind of putting all their trust in government and in powers to kind of take care of us and guide our directions. Like, oh, these aren't really, beneficial entities that are looking out for our good. They're people with flaws who are, enamored by power and and putting our trust into that has started to break down, I think, among more and more people. There's some of us who really never had that trust in it, and then there's more people who are going, wow, maybe there's different ways, and what does that look like? Because we do need something like being on our, like you said, being on our own. There's only so much you can accomplish, and it's very difficult in this world without some kind of community supporting you. So
yes. And so to conclude this, we really wanted to offer the people who've taken the time to listen to this to really powerful practices that has helped us, a breathing exercise and a grounding exercise. I'm a big fan of the box breathing exercise, which is just a simple inhale, hold, exhale, hold, and that's a count of 4. So I'm going to go ahead and run you through maybe 5 rounds of that, and then David can give a grounding.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll run you through that, and then David can offer a grounding exercise. Yeah. So just go ahead and sit down wherever you are. You could be on a chair, on the ground, and you can go ahead and close your eyes. Your shoulders are relaxed. Your back is straight. Eyes are closed. And start to sense and feel everything around you. We're going to always be inhaling through the nose, exhaling through the mouth. In between, we'll hold the breath for 4. Let's begin. Mouth closed. Inhale through the nose. 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold the breath. 4, 3, 2, 1. Open the mouth. Exhale with. Hold the breath. 4, 3, 2, 1. Mouth closed. Inhale. 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold the breath. 4, 3, 2, 1. Mouth open. Exhale. 4, 3, 2, 1. Mouth closed. Hold the breath. 4, 3, 2, 1. 3 more rounds. Inhale. 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold. 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale. 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold. 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale. 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold. 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale. Hold. 4, 3, 2, 1. Last round. Inhale. 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold. 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale. 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold. 4, 3, 2, 1. Keep your eyes closed. Continue with normal breathing. Inhaling through the nose, exhaling through the nose. And just feel how much more relaxed your body is. And I'm going to invite David to give his grounding exercise.
You can keep your eyes closed if they are closed, or close them if you've opened them. And wherever you're seated, just check in with your posture and gently stack the vertebrae of your spinal cord on top of each other one by one. And as you breathe in a little bit of space in between each vertebrae so your spine gets nice and long as the top of your head reaches for the ceiling. Your shoulders should be gently back and relaxed. Your arms can be by your side. Hands can be on your lap. Just breathing. You can relax your face, eyebrows, cheeks, jaw. And as you breathe in, begin to imagine that you're breathing in energy or light, or even just breathing in air from the top of your head, and it's going down the very middle of your body, all the way down to what we call the root, which is the perineum, the very base of the body, in between the genitals and the anus. Breathing all the way down there. And then the exhale, breathing back up. That central channel from the top of the crown all the way down to the root. And if you're seated in a chair, make sure that your feet are flat on the ground. And if you're seated cross-legged, you can remain that way. In whichever position you're in, just imagine that there are roots growing from the base, right in front of the tailbone, that energetic root at the base of our spine. They're growing downwards through the floor, through whatever floors of building you're in, down into the ground, burrowing deep down into the layers of the earth, through the crust of the earth, deep down into the ground, all the way down to the earth's core. And now as you breathe in, imagine that you're breathing in that earth energy, this grounding energy up those roots into your body. And as you exhale, you can exhale any nervous energy down those roots, down into the core of the earth, where they're transmuted into grounding energy. So any fears, any worry, any anxiety, any panic, all of that can be exhaled down that root. And then inhaling back up, grounding energy. Inhaling, grounding energy, and feeling filled, feeling solid. And then releasing, letting go, and exhaling any nervous energy, anxious energy, and letting it go all the way down, out of the body, into the earth. And then just beginning to retract those roots back up the earth, back up layers of earth crust, back up through the building, back up into very just in front of the base of the spine. And then just take a few breaths here to feel into your body. Notice anything that's changed. Just bring awareness to your body sitting here. And when you're ready, just gently let the eyes flutter open as you come back to the present moment. And in my tradition, we say, Om Namah Shivaya.
Om Namah Shivaya. Thank you, David, for your time. In the link below, I'm going to also put down how one can reach you, the services you offer, and how we probably have some more talks continue in this vision we want to put out. One does notice there's an ease and flow when you're at the right place at the right time. And till then, I've become a real advocate to just trust divine timing.
I just talked to a friend of mine who is very tapped in to psychic energy in a way, which is another thing that I've been very skeptical about, but she's told me some things about myself that that nobody could ever know. And she's said, you'll know it when you get there, and it's going to happen soon. You'll be on the land, and it doesn't have to do with the buildings. You'll have the feeling.
Oh my God, I'm getting like chills. Yes, yeah. I stood on this piece of land and I was like, this is it. And I have only read and heard about that, and it happened. I just like, whoa. And the guy who owned the land, he touched my hand and he got an electric shock. He goes, oh my God, the energy that's running through you. And I got really scared. I was like, what is going on here? and then it happens so fast, like within a week, you've got the land and the company. It's just, it happens when it's. So thank you so much for your time. And I'm really appreciate all the information. And I hope everybody out there who listens to this can be a little bit more encouraged with their creativity, and get in touch with David or with me if you have any more questions. We'll put more information in the link below. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been really fun, and I'm looking forward to the next one.